Hi everybody, Peter Turner here, the CEO of ConnexionCFO. I'd like to welcome Matt Garman this week to our weekly podcast, chatting, as everyone knows, chatting with successful, ambitious business people. Hi Matt.
Hi Peter, how you doing?
Yeah, excellent. I've known Matt for a long time. He's a successful entrepreneur, fantastic public speaker, and if you ever get a chance to hire Matt, definitely make contact with him. He's also an adventurer and a well-known author, having written his third book, An Unconventional Journey into Leadership. It's definitely unconventional, so it's definitely worth a read. I've got a few questions for you today, Matt. So what we're really interested in is how can you take the learnings you've got over the years from being an adventurer, being an entrepreneur, etc., and how can you apply it to business? So the first question I've got is, you rode the Atlantic. It took you 69 days with, I think, 2 other people. And what I know is, and you said you did it because you wanted to push yourself to the extent of your abilities. And it was only over a 69-day period. How can you apply that to a business where, I'm pushing myself, but my journey is like 3, 4, 10 years?
I think, so I've got to correct you though, mate, to start with. It's 49 days.
49, okay.
Our target was 50 and we just crept in underneath it.
Oh, brilliant, well
done. It's amazing, actually. I'm asked quite regularly if there are any similarities between an adventure or an expedition or something like that and business. And yeah, for me there are. There's a number of similarities. But I suppose as much as, wrong timing when the dog wants to come
in. That's the thing with live podcasts, I guess.
I think as much as anything else, I've done a number of events on my own, and I know that I function better in a very, very small, tight team. But I think as much as anything, I wanted to push myself to what I thought. So what I thought was the extent, as far as the extremes of what I think I'm capable of, and that was the really important part of me. But I think the similarities, there's loads of them. I've always talked in business about vision, people, and process, and it was no different when we were putting together the campaign for the row as well. The vision is we want to get across, obviously get 3 blokes safely across the Atlantic. We want to do it in less than 50 days, and we want to step off the boat as firm friends. So there's lots. It's creating that clarity there as much as anything else. And I think for us it's really simple because there was only one thing. Got to get to Antigua, sort of thing. With those others, I think it's with a business we've got probably a lot more moving parts.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, obviously the team you had was an excellent team. You're all focused. You had a great purpose and clear expectations. But what I'm interested in is, at what point did it all go wrong, or what point did throughout the journey did it go wrong, and how did the 3 of you emotionally handle that and enable yourself to refocus?
It's inevitable that there's going to be crosswords, because you've got about that much personal space per person for what is 7 weeks, what ended up being 7 weeks on the ocean. So it's invariably going to be crosswords. But it's really strange because there's genuinely only 4 or 5 times that 3 of us had crosswords. And that's typically when we're in a very, very uncomfortable situation, with the weather. There's 9 times out of 10 it was weather, and not that it was that often anyway. But that's if you're thinking about it, the boat was 27 feet long, and there were times when we've got swells of 30, 40, and the occasional 50 foot. So raised voices are not unusual, particularly if it starts getting a little bit, dare I say it, scary at the time. But I was amazed. I don't think, I don't want to be rude, and I love my wife dearly, but I don't think I could go 7 weeks without a crossword in such a confined space with my wife. But anyway, we got, and then the other thing is when when you do have a crossword, you just bring it back. And obviously, I was skipper. You just bring it back to the main thing, guys. You know, we want to step off the boat as firm friends, and we all want the same thing, which is get to Antigua as quickly as possible.
And I think we had a bite to eat a few weeks back, and you talked about, I think, was it your first 10 days into the journey, you woke up and thought to yourself, what on earth am I doing here?
Yeah, it's nothing prepares you for it. I think, you know, we spent, you know, for those listening that go on a rowing machine in the gym, you know, we set ourselves a target of 10 million meters each. You know, which you can't actually put it to 10 million. So we had to run a book of everything. We spent sort of 256 hours at sea in terms of preparation. But all of then, you're going back to port. So even when you're training and you're going out for a row for 20, 30 hours, you're coming back. So that what the massive difference is obviously that moment in time when you slip the rope and you leave La Gomera in the full knowledge that you know you're not coming back until you reach the Caribbean. That's a bit of that does mess with your head a little bit.
I'm sure it does. And so the next question, I mean, you basically were doing the same things day in, day out. And it's a little bit like, and I guess the question I've got is, we know if I look about what I'm thinking about what I'm doing in terms of ConnexionCFO, and I'm working really big hours, I'm just getting it off the ground. And sometimes it gets quite tiresome, but you've got to keep doing it. I'm trying to, you know, I've set myself certain tasks that I do every day that are outside of that business environment, just to normalize my day and spend time with my friends and my family. I know, but you can't do that. So, and how did you take time out to try and normalize what an ordinary day looks like?
I think, it's very, very monotonous. I think just to give listeners a context of the shift pattern. So there were three of us on the boat. In the day, we decided at daylight hours we were going to row, 2 people rowing, 1 person resting. So it was 2 hours on, 1 rower off, 1 hour off, and we would rotate rowers every hour. And then at night time we went down to 1 rower, and it would be 1 hour on and 2 hours off. So it's absolutely relentless. The thing is dog wants to come back in again now, so I think this will hopefully be the last of it. I do apologise, but but the other thing with that as well is that you've always got each other to talk about, and the key thing about it is a bit like having a peer group with business. You talk to people because they're in the same mindset, they're in the same space, and it's actually, although you'd be surprised, you think you're going to run out of things to talk about. You know, we were 3 blokes, all of the same sort of age, and you just end up talking about all sorts of things, and that would be the topic for the day. So it does actually move along. Aside from that, lots and lots of audio books. It's a great opportunity to not, you know, I've got no tech other than my phone with some stuff on it, and obviously lots of music as well. So there's always whilst you're physically stuck in that place, there is still always that opportunity to kind of, dare I say it, take yourself somewhere else.
And what leadership lessons did you learn that business leaders can learn? And I know you always talk about never put off uncomfortable conversations. Can you talk about that? Because we all experience those at some point in our journeys.
Yeah, I in my the first business I ran, I like to deem myself as a little bit of a lifelong learner in terms of, you know, you pick things up all the way along, and some things you see, some things you learn, some things you observe, and dare I say it, sometimes you have to experience a bit of pain to get somewhere. But I had the misfortune, and I write about it in the book of experiencing taking on inheriting what I would call a scumbag employee, and we ended up in an industrial tribunal, and they'd taken previous people to trial, and it was a bit of a mess. And one of the things for me that I really realised on that is I could have put a lot of those things off earlier. So I am a huge fan of not putting off uncomfortable conversations. My view on that is that they rarely come as a surprise to the other person. So, and they're all, also, if you do put them off, they rarely resolve themselves either. So, you know, we've always had certainly on the boat, you know, we would always have if anyone's saying anything, feel it, just let it all out, because, you know, we're three decent people. Deep down, we're all decent people, and we needed to do that. Probably a little bit more before that was the fact that we were originally going to be a team of 4. And we ended up parting company with one of the team members, and he is and was and is a great guy. But he was younger than the rest of us. He had a lot more other commitments outside of what we were trying to target as well. So we ended up we were forced to have an uncomfortable conversation relatively early on, which is actually why we went from 4 rowers down to 3 rowers.
Okay. And so how do you feel you grew personally on that trip, and what are the key lessons that you would pass across to somebody else around the things that you personally learned?
I think you learn a hell of a lot about yourself. You learn a hell of a lot about your teammates. And as I say, I go back to what I said sort of 5-10 minutes ago. You've got no distractions. You know, there's times, you know, when you're in the middle of the Atlantic, you're 1,500 miles in that direction and 1,500 miles in that direction. So you've got no social media, you've not got LinkedIn, no Facebook. Okay, we've got a satellite phone, but generally you're left to your own thoughts. And I think one of the things is, I think I've always been a bit of a control freak. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are generally, you know, quite controlling. And out in the Atlantic or anything like that, the reality of it is you can't really control. You can control what you can do, but you can't control the weather. You can't control Mother Nature. And I think so. One of them was actually just a straightforward acceptance, but I can only control the controllables. Okay. And I think the other thing that happens as well is when you feel a little bit fraught, and we all thought, you know, you're all feeling fraught at times, and there's times when you don't want to row, but you haven't got any choice. You said it earlier on about, I've got to push on with the business. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. You haven't got any choice. You can't let your teammates down because you've committed to what you're doing. And therefore it teaches you, you've got to be kind to people. And I think that's a big one that I learned as well is, you know, if somebody's in your team, then be kind to them, because you've got, you know, okay, so you might have an inkling that they might be going through something, or they might be struggling with their work, but, you know, you can always be there to support, but it should always start with kindness. You know, how can I help? Is there anything I can do for you, sort of thing?
Cool. And just on the Atlantic trip, other than finishing, what was the most special moment you experienced?
I think the whole thing with the Atlantic is, people ask me about the emotions. It's the highest highs and the lowest lows. So the lows are just torturous, but the highs, and again, I've seen it many a time. Dolphins. There's going to be a scientist there that's going to say about how their, you know, sensitivity or, you know, systems and stuff like that. Dolphins have this unbelievable habit of turning up when you need them. They just, you can be having the worst day. You could be missing home. You could be a little bit tearful. You know, you might be sunburnt. Your hands are aching. Your backside's aching, and everything just is on the point of meltdown. And then a pod of 30 or 40 dolphins just pitch up and start corkscrewing and cajoling in front of you, and it's so that's really quite magical. And I'd say the other thing that I found quite magical was the stars. We never really look at the stars, you know, because if we live in towns and stuff like that, there's always light, pollution from somewhere. You know, in the Middle Atlantic, there is no light pollution, absolutely nothing. So what you end up, you can end up looking up at the stars, and you know, we also every now and then you see shooting stars and stuff like that. It's really quite special.
Wow, well done. Well done. I was prior to this, I was looking at your promotional video for your guest speaking, and I saw there was a piece there about how you swam across the English Channel. And the part that really stood out for me was at the end when you said it was you achieved something. You found a team of people to swim with because you don't necessarily like to do things by yourself. And at the end of it, there was a bond between the four of you because you've all achieved something really special, but you've also all gone through some pretty hard times to do that. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, as I think, I mean, I've done, you know, as I know you have, you know, you've done quite a lot of, we've all done quite a lot of things on our own. I realised, you know, I played rugby until I was 40. Didn't want to be the guy complaining at the referee when I was a little bit slower than I needed to be. So I then went off and did some other sports, and I did some solo stuff. I did some Ironman things, but they felt quite empty to me. And I realised then that I'm definitely a small team person. I came up with this. I said to them, I started training more and more, and I couldn't actually swim very well at 40. So head up breaststroke and all that. So I committed to training and swimming. And then I said to my wife one day as we're walking along the seafront where we live in Seaford, I said, I wonder if I could swim to France. And she just looked at me. She just said, "You'll die, you idiot." And it's like, no, I said, I won't do it on my own. I said, I've put together a team. And she said, "You'll never find anyone silly enough to come with you." Anyway, so yes, 3 weeks later, I'm not going to be set back. So 3 weeks later, assembled a team. I always knew, I mean, I invited people that I thought there was something special about. So we had a team of 4. The first hours of everyone's swim were horrendous. But as I described in the video, nobody was prepared to be the weak link that day, and it lifted us. And it was the same with the row. It lifted us, and I think the best thing that I can say from that, which I think is a lesson to all of us in business, is that we put together a team of 4 who were all really good, but everyone committed and bought into that journey, which is obviously critical, important with the vision piece in the business. Everyone bought into that journey. Everyone did more, way above what was expected of them, and as a result, if I speak at an event, I say, look, that day we actually created something that was bigger and stronger than the sum of its parts, and that was just so. It was a magical day. That was a magical day.
Nice, well done. So, what's next?
Well, I kind of Mrs. G's not around, so I said at the time after the row that I probably wouldn't do any long endurance challenges for a while. But that was kind of, you know, it's probably 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago now. So maybe there's another itch that probably needs scratching. And I'm currently planning to cycle across America next year. So I'm looking to go from San Diego in California to all the way across from West Coast to East Coast, all the way across to St. Augustine in Florida.
And how long does that take?
Probably quite similar to the row, actually. I think it's going to be about 6 weeks, something like that. Yes. Maybe a little bit.
Well, I wish you all the best in that, Matt. So, Matt, thanks very much for today. I've really enjoyed it. You know, there's pretty good key learnings there, I think, for everybody. The one I'm going to take away personally is get the team together and go and do something quite adventurous outside of work that will, you know, really challenge us.
Push people. I think the thing is, and I said sometimes, you know, if I ask people, it's like, well, when was the last time you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone? And I don't mean necessarily dangerous or crazy or anything else like that, but maybe something that does actually, you know, not scare you physically, but just scare you a little bit, or make you think, oh, I don't know if I can do that. You know, those are the ones, and I always say as well, quite often that's where the real growth comes from in ourselves as well. You know, there's plenty of people that said, you know, nothing any use ever happens in a comfort zone. You know, so that ability just to push on, I think, is really good. And I think, yeah, try and find something that just borderline scares you would be good.
Well, thank you for letting me have that challenge for myself. Man, thank you very much.
All right, no problems. Thanks for. Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.